I've been basically asked to reinterpret She's work, and she's been asked to reinterpret one of my looks. So it's kind of like a job swap, really.
When I received the email, I was like, is it real? Two designers enter each other's world and see what miracles can happen.
I loved that there were a lot of things that I kind of immediately identified in She's work. Because all this beautiful quilting, that's kind of, I think, where we started. And also the color palette is really beautiful. And so that's what we picked up on, was this idea of the blues and then building out the denim. I truly believe when I work with next generation designers that this is already part of their working ways. It's not forced, it's not greenwashing. And I think that's really positive. It gives me hope. Well, the look that she has, it's not dissimilar to what I'm kind of wearing, actually. It's quite a masculine take. It's very sort of Stella McCartney tailoring.
My team and I were very surprised when we received the suit set. There is a double-breasted jacket and wool trousers. The style is very modern and chic with a sort of several tailoring techniques. I think there is seamlessness of feminine and masculine, elements of androgyny. Inside of a tailored jacket is very interesting. There are so many things like paddings, layers of like horsehairs, fabrics, many structures. So I want to make the style very opposite. I want to turn it to something very wild, bold, and maybe seductive.
I like a challenge, and I also lean into technology hugely to answer a lot of my problems. And I, for a long time, have been working with waste. And actually, this has come out of what I did during the pandemic, because I did an alphabet and A to Z with the artist collaborations. And one of the looks was a zero waste look that was all denim. So that's very much inspired this collaboration and this piece of work. Ripping something apart that's already made is something I do quite a lot.
My first commercial collection happens during the beginning of COVID, so there's nowhere to buy materials. You can only use what you have. That's why I started to reuse and upcycle the things left in my studio. I use zero waste pattern cutting techniques, and we cut it into different pieces. And the very interesting thing is we turn the inside out, so we show the chest paddings, the shoulder pads. Then we make it all flat and use the embroidery machine to stitch them together. And then we keep the very beautiful inside things.
When you're working in a way that's breaking down a garment in a kind of mindful way and in a considerate way and in a creative way, that does take time in itself, just physically breaking apart a pair of jeans where you can still use aspects of it. So I was sort of piling that all together and trying to create an item that you still want to wear, but at least have, you know, a lot of interest to look at. I think being a female designer, designing for women, the one thing at least I can do is make something desirable to wear.
You cut the shape, we put this piece here, we put pockets here, so the whole process is very free and creative. When you really look at the dress, you can see the real structures of Stella McCartney's jackets. So it's also like a record. Of course, they're gonna deconstruct the whole thing. She can do anything. She can even burn it. So I will leave the surprise to the last minute, and I'm super looking forward to it.
When I look at her work, I think the silhouettes are much rounder. There's cropping going on when I've seen it. I think she'll probably get padding. I think she'll just be ripping it apart and making it way more brilliant than I did.
When we received the garments, all the members here were just so excited. When you have the chance to work with someone you heard for a long, long time, you know, it's such a huge honor and a huge chance for us, for me.
You know, there's a natural, I think, connection between our work. I really felt the love from your team. You know, I can tell it's a small team, and I think that's, you know, you can feel it. You can feel it in the work. Wow, cool. I only want to zoom in on that. Can I go closer in? There's so much detail, She. You've basically dissected it. We're not far off each other's looks, funnily enough.
All the fabric you see, besides the black tail, all the other fabrics like white, black, and the gray are all from the tailor jackets, but we turn the inside out. I think it's important to let people know the effort your team made for one jacket. It's like many fabrics there, like many handwork I can see.
I was drawn to the color of the skirt and the jacket. There's such a youthful edge to it that I really wanted to take those elements and maybe stellify them a little bit, but also keeping the youth. And for me, denim is ageless. I really wanted to obviously do a completely upcycled and not bring in any new materials into the conversation. And then I wanted to use this complete 360 upcycling to patchwork together your garment with our pieces. The inside has as much work as the outside, and I think that comes back to what you were saying about the tailoring and what inspired you on how to translate my bespoke jacket. It was such a pleasure finally meeting you, and I've loved working on this project.
Thank you so much, Stella.
Bye. It's nice, you feel like you've met them without meeting them, even though we're miles away from each other. You can definitely pick up on the energy of the designer and their hand and a sense of who they are through their work.
Because it's such a huge honor for us to have this chance to collaborate. Give me more like fresh perspectives and fresh ideas. It's very meaningful for us.
Yeah, I was going to start by saying something really super cheesy, like our next speaker needs no introduction, but it is true that she needs
pretty
no
good.
introduction.
I'll take it.
And that is because I think we all feel like we kind of know her. That's probably a big lie. I don't really know you at all. But we feel that we do know her, and it's because so much of the way that Stella McCartney, the brand, behaves feels like something Stella McCartney, the person, would do. So I want to talk to you about what that means and why that is, and kind of how you started with that from the beginning.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. Don't let the food coma make you fall asleep during this, okay? And keep awake. I think, I guess we live in a day and age in business where everyone is targeting someone, and the word target always gives me like this creepy, deadly feeling when I hear it in a meeting. And I think that we founded the brand in a day and age where maybe people weren't that fierce about trying to sort of find an audience and then take advantage of it in a sense. And I think that for me, I've always really based every single thing that I do on authenticity. And perhaps that has enabled me to have a voice and a conversation with people in a way that has a genuine sort of, element to it. And therefore people maybe believe that they know me a little better, or they feel a little more comfortable because they possibly see that there is some honesty in it.
You weren't here for the first section because you were busy doing other things.
Being here.
But Elizabeth Payton made the point this morning that authenticity is a kind of overused word. And
oh, shoot, well then I should not have used that word.
Yeah, it can feel very trite because we do trot it out all the time. So I just wonder what it actually means for you.
Well, I take that back completely. No, I just think it means that, look, we're all on the same planet, we're all in the same place. There's many, many people trying to do many, many different things, and there's a lot of different ways of communicating it. And I guess for me, the authenticity, what it means to me is to be myself, be honest to myself, and then the conversation that I'm opening up with people and that I'm touching potentially that I haven't met and I possibly will never meet, it becomes a more valid conversation. And it just means that I don't have to try so hard. Sometimes if I find myself forcing things, even this conversation today, I feel comfortable having it. I don't have to sit and practice and, brainwash myself with information because I feel I can be authentic in the conversation I'm having. And I think that people aren't stupid. I think that people believe something that is honest and they don't believe it when it's not.
You don't have talking points?
I don't. I'm sort of relying on.
So when you say you don't want to target people, do you feel that is sort of the way things are trending, that, when you speak to, your communications department or marketing consultancies, that everyone's like, okay, which small slice of the consumer pie are you after now?
Well, we don't use that kind of language within the company. It's not something I ever talk to anyone about, actually. But I do encounter it, outside in the big bad world. And, we work with many licenses. And so, we create fragrances and we work across many different generations. So, of course I hear the X, Ys and Zs of the world, but it's not something that we ever tap into within Stella McCartney, because I think we all know the brand well enough to know that, if it's right for us to have a relationship with a generation, then it's because it was born out of either a product or something that we felt that they happened to connect with more than anything. I think people find us. I think that's what's happened with our brand. I don't think that we've actively gone out there to really kind of punch down a piece of information that people wouldn't necessarily arrive at naturally.
So if you're not targeting demographics or generations, how are you thinking about who you're talking to?
We've done things, that came out of just an artistic collaboration, or we've done things, the beauty is a good example with, we launched a perfume called Pop, and at the time we were wanting to sort of open up a conversation with a younger customer, but only because we had Stella, which was a little more, it had been in the marketplace luckily for a while, and we knew that the person had grown up with us, and we kind of wanted to talk to the daughter rather than the mother. And so, but then that came about by me saying, I don't want to just look at models, young models that don't, for me it was like, who do we want to talk to and how do we want to talk to them and how can I feel like I'm not selling my soul in this process, And so it always becomes genuine. It always feels right at the end of the day once we've sort of looked at it. But we do a lot of projects also that are, again, they come from my heart and from my own experiences, things that have happened to me or things that I've seen growing up,
Can you give me an example?
Well, our breast cancer awareness campaign is born out of, sadly I lost my mum to that, and I think it's something that everyone in this room is touched by. I would presume if you look at the sort of the facts and the figures, somebody has had a loss or knows somebody that's had a loss or is dealing with that right now as I speak. And so for me, that crosses over many different generations, and that's not me targeting people. That's just me genuinely speaking from the heart, and So I think we have a lot of variety also within the house.
When you did that, to sort of talk about the breast cancer campaign, you had a lot of different women in as part of that campaign. So how did you find them? How did you choose them? We just wanted to talk in a different way, and the minute you want to talk in a different way, people find you and you find them quite easily, because there's a kind of code of conduct. I think when you get into that arena where people are either very delicate or very sort of scared of being a little bit more kind of edgy and a little bit more controversial. And so when I realized I didn't want to sort of just politely apologize for the double mastectomy bra that I'd designed, I started to find women that were really happy and open to talk about their story, and then that really, I think everyone is attracted to that. If you can, it's not like we're trying to sensationalize it either. So I think that when you present it in a mindful and sort of delicate way, but at the same time you're not apologizing and you want people to pay attention, it's an awareness campaign. So I don't want to sort of be apologetic for it either. One of the things that often comes up in conversations about targeting generations or targeting new market groups is, what platform you're using. Everyone's like, well, if it's on Snapchat, then you're going to reach a younger generation. If it's Instagram, you hit this. And if you do print magazines, maybe you're hitting an older generation. Do you think in those terms? And if not, how do you see all those different platforms working together?
Well, we've never been afraid of social media or the variety within it. It's something that we really celebrate at Stella McCartney. It's not, we're not stupid. We know that different platforms speak to different people, but I think we also know that is just, it's such a fast-moving way of looking at things. If you get too bogged down into going, Snapchat's only going to talk to X, Y, and Z, I think by the time you've created the content, they've moved on and they've dropped it. So, we find things that feel right for the content that we've created, and we house it in a place that is more about the content than who we're speaking to.
Can you give examples?
We've done things like One City, One Girl that is more perhaps an Instagram-led kind of project that is really, I do this thing where I find young artists or I find inspiring women or men, and I tend to sort of send them a bag of stuff. And I'll be like, go do what you want to do with it. You know, I don't really want to control everything as well, and I want to bring people into what we're doing. So things like that maybe are more applicable to Instagram because, you know, it can be more kind of, it can be placed within where it was made, the content and things like that. But I mean, there's many examples of different ways that we approach things like that.
Has anyone ever suggested something to you where you're like, ew, no, I would never do that?
In what? Yes, but in what? Might have to give me a little more context on that
In
one.
terms of like, in terms of communications, in terms of reaching out.
Well, you know, we're you know, coming back to the sort of authenticity of the house. We don't pay people, you know, outside of sort of when you have to pay, but we don't kind of go and tout people and say, I'll pay you to come to my show, or I'll pay you to kind of act like you like that handbag, or, you know, believe in sort of what we're doing in, as far as ethics go. So those are things like that I always say no to. You know, the idea of kind of getting too sucked into kind of having to fake it in that sense. We don't do that. I'll try and think about other things.
You know, the other thing that I'm sort of interested in terms of communication is we do get very, very focused on the digital world and, you know, and the platforms there. And what about actually in person? You know, how important is it for you to go out and, you know, meet people?
I'm quite old school like that. I enjoy that. So I'm not afraid to do that at all. I think the best thing for me as the creative director of the house and, you know, one of the shareholders of the house is to remember humans in it. Like, that's why I'm doing what I do. You know, I'm a fashion designer because I find it psychologically fascinating that we decide to wear what we're wearing today, and it's a reflection of who we are, and it can make us feel good, it can make us feel bad. You know, that's why I do what I do. It's not for any other reason, really. So I enjoy meeting women and men. You know, I enjoy the process and learning from them, and we're a human brand in that sense. So it's something that I personally enjoy, and I always come away having learned something or reminded myself of something that perhaps I could have forgotten had I have closed off the doors. You know, I think it's very easy, the day and age we live in, to just go, remove yourself, and try not to have a physical connection with people because, you know, it's another kind of side to work in a sense. But I've always enjoyed it. I've always probably gotten more out of it than the other person.
And do you find that it's true no matter, you know, what age the person you're talking to is or where they're from, that, you know, they respond to that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, it depends on who you are and who you're talking to. But, you know, I think we're I think that the way in which we design at Stella McCartney process is so heartfelt. You know, we sit in fittings and we try everything on for like far too long, and we'll debate, you know, half an inch for just it's horrible. We're like, my God, 5 hours later, really? Who cares if it's that pink or that pink? And we go so deep into it that I think that the person at the end of the process, I hope they feel a little bit of that. So, you know, I think that's what we are as a house, and I think that the kind of contact and the humanness to what we do is a big part of it.
Do you think the whole idea that we should be dividing things up or thinking about communication in terms of different generations is false?
No, look, I don't think it's false, and I think everything has its merits, but I believe that you can go a step too far. And I think that we're all here together, we're all connected. I think at Stella McCartney, you know, we did a project recently with Glenn Close and her daughter, and it was, you know, it was so liberating because it took about 4 seconds. I was like, Glenn, do you want to do this thing?
I'm inspired by people. I'm mostly inspired by interactions and just kind of little things that happen that just, it can be anything. It can be the tape on the lighting system here I can get inspired by, or I can get inspired by riding my horse at the weekends and just seeing a bluebell in the forest. You know, they're very subtle things that touch my heart, and they're the things that normally start a process. My name is Stella McCartney. I'm a fashion designer. I'm probably a fashion designer with a twist in that my brand is a little more than just sort of luxury fashion. I also have quite a responsible, ethical twist on the industry. So I look at it in a slightly different way. I'm coming from it at a slightly different angle. I'm also a mother of 4, which has an impact on my life. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely an instinctive designer. I work on instincts, and I pick up on, you know, if I'm afforded 10 minutes to walk in the street, I kind of absorb. I absorb quick and I react quickly because I sort of have to, you know. So yeah, when it comes to the shows, the music I get really involved in, I can't help myself. I work really closely with my DJ and we just try to have fun with the music. You know, it's an early morning show in Paris. And I'm aware, girls, the models, I very much like to have girls that represent me, that I want to be. When they come in, I'm like, oh, I want to be you. You know, I love the way you just came into that room and you haven't washed your hair and, you know, you haven't got any makeup on, or you maybe have your lipstick on from the night before. Like, I want to be you. And I like them to have something. I can't explain it. I don't overthink it. I think if I overthought things and I went, okay, right, this season I've got to get into the library and I've got to go to every new contemporary show that's on in the museums, and I need to know what's happening with the young artists, or a high heel that's like, you know, really take it up a notch. And I love designing evening wear for that. I love looking into how do you want to reflect your personality to people in a brief moment that maybe you've never met them, you'll never see them again. And how do you want to feel when you walk in that room? And how do you want to feel when you're sitting down in that room? Do you want to feel comfortable, or do you not really care because you want to look a certain way? Or so much that goes into it. And, you know, I don't want to feel like I've got a big ball gown on when I go out. I don't want to feel like an old lady. I don't want to, you know, I want to capture some part of me and bring that to the people that I'm meeting in that environment. So I have a real sympathy for women. I understand what it's like to be one. So when I create, I take that so much into account, the sort of more emotional side of clothes, the more emotional needs that we have, psychological needs, how it impacts how we dress. And that is a huge part of how I work. You know, I feel like all of us have that moment in the morning where you're too late and you're like, and you reach for you reach for the old faithful pieces. And for me, I want to provide those for my customers. I want to have them available, you know, season after season, and I want them to be timeless and effortless, of the highest quality. You know, tourist industry, it's all like, for me, they're all one thing, and you shouldn't have to compromise it though. You shouldn't have to compromise any of the beauty and the escapism and the glamour and the glitz. It can all still be there. You shouldn't have to compromise any of it. The main thing for me is I don't work with leather or fur or PVC. Over 50 million animals a year that are killed for fashion alone. So there's a big impact. I think there's been, when I was younger growing up, there was always this idea that it was a byproduct, that, you know, when you made a nice handbag, it was a byproduct, so it's okay. And the reality is it isn't. So, you know, it's not efficient. I guess the biggest way that we as a brand are environmentally friendly is we don't buy into the inefficiency of creating leather as a product. PVC is a new one that I learned about a few years ago. I actually learned about that through my relationship with Adidas. I mean, just what I learned from her was just give out a ton of love unconditionally. You know, just go with the flow, allow things to happen, try and sympathize.